Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. It's that time again. It's Doctors and Scientists. I'm your host, Dr. Brian Hooker, and it is Friday, September 12th. And I love having this guest. I'm going to bring him on because he's so cool. Gary Chapman is such a wonderful friend of Children's Health Defense. This is, I think, is this the third time that you've been on the show, Gary?
I think that's right. Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
Gary, contemporary Christian artist, singer, songwriter. You've had your own podcast in the past and huge supporter of MAHA and health freedom. It's always good to see you. How have you been? What is new in your life? If there's anything that you can share.
Sure. I'm doing great. I've had a fun summer. Uh, I was okay for school to start.
Mm-hmm.
So our Eva Rose started middle school this year, which, as I recall, kids in particular, but and this is not a sexist comment. It's just a clear observation. Girls get mean. They get really mean about that time. And I have been increasingly concerned with how she, with her, her spectrum situation, would
Right,
deal with
right.
it. And I think she's going to be great. I think she's going to be just fine. Uh,
That is so super. So she's you've been able to find a school to enroll her in. I think that did you homeschool last year? I can't remember.
we haven't
Okay.
homeschooled at all. No,
Okay.
we had an amazing human that God dropped into our lives, a lady named Kim Creditch, who, as
Hmm.
it turns out, wrote the laws in the state of Tennessee that govern how a school must uh, obey a child's IEP. Three letters that
Right.
I didn't know what those three letters stood for 7 years ago, but yeah. So we've been. Let's just say when she walks in the room, everybody says, "Sure, okay, no, that's a good idea." So it's been a great experience for us. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and I know, so many of the people that watch Doctors and Scientists and CHD TV, I mean, they're in similar situations. I mean,
Sure.
those are not necessarily the letters that you ever really want to hear in life, but if you can use them,
At this point, I actually believe every child in public school should have an IEP,
right.
because the sentiment behind it is, let's just give this kid everything we can, every opportunity, every window, every process that is available to bring out the best in them and let them turn into an amazing human. That ought to be the case with every kid.
Yeah,
It
imagine
really
that.
should. Yeah. Yeah.
Imagine that. Yeah, yeah. If that was, every child got the opportunity to be able to succeed individually based on who they are.
Right.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I've got something I want to read something to you. I saw this weekend. I think that my wife pointed out to me, and one of my first thoughts was, gee, I wonder what Gary would think about this. So, um, I have a little bracelet that I wear that says, "What would Gary do?" No, no,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't have a
WWGT. What would Gary think?
what
Yeah.
would Gary think? Exactly. So this is from our president, Donald J. Trump. And I'm not gonna read the whole tweet, but this came out on Truth Social. It is very important that the drug companies justify the success of their various COVID drugs. Many people think that they are a miracle that saved millions of lives. Others disagree. With the CDC being ripped apart over this question, I want the answer and I want it now. I have been shown information from Pfizer and others that is extraordinary, but they never seem to show those results to the public. Why not? They go
Hmm.
off on the next hunt and let everybody rip themselves apart, including Bobby Kennedy Jr. and the CDC, trying to figure out the success or failure of the drug companies' COVID work. And I'm going to stop there. There's a lot to unpack there. And, first of all, what do you think of the question?
I think it's beautiful. I think it's basically him going, okay, hold on. He's just putting bait on the water, dude. He's just laying it out there. They have to respond, obviously. And when
Right,
they do, everybody that knows the truth is going to descend. And we might actually have a shot at truth getting a chance here, which would be really amazing, not just for the United States, but for the planet. It would be really, really great for that to happen. And we shall see. You know, I, like many, and nothing of that kind happens as quickly as I want it to, I've noticed.
right.
And then, I also know that with anything, certainly any good thing, there's early, there's late, and there's right on time. And I believe it's going to be right on time. My response, my musical response to the whole thing, they can take their jab and shove it. So
Right.
um, I have not veered from my initial take on it.
No. I absolutely couldn't agree more. But one of the things that's happened is that it seems like the mainstream press has exploded, in this whole, with just posing the question.
Hmm.
And I don't see anything in there that is anything more than a question. I mean, but it seems like the public health authorities are somehow opposed to us knowing, okay, if it's so
Hmm.
great, then where are the Pfizer documents? Why did Pfizer
Yeah.
want 76 years before they released any of the documents from the clinical trial?
Right. Right. Well, I mean, it's obvious to anyone with common sense, and if they still have a couple of brain cells slapping against each other, it's very, very clear. The old adage about the guilty one being the first one to say it wasn't me
Right.
uh, is very, very clear, because the media, by and large, is culpable. If you really want to take this home, they're just as guilty as anybody else, because they knew it was lies and they spread them far and wide. So, that's just my opinion, but I think I'm right.
I think you're right too, Gary. It's so weird to see human nature playing out, you know,
Hmm.
in this particular context. And so many people just sort of, light is shown, and they scramble to the darkness and want to, essentially hide what
Yeah.
was going on. I mean, if they made the right decisions, if Anthony Fauci, if Deborah Birx, if Francis Collins, whomever that were pulling the strings to make the decisions, if they thought that they were making the right decisions for the country at the time, then shouldn't they just say that?
Well, they should be proud to have this opportunity to show what a great job they did.
Right.
And if they're not doing that, odds are they didn't do a great job.
Exactly. Exactly.
Who at that level, or any level, quite frankly, evades praise? That's not what humans do. We're
No.
drawn to it like moths to a flame. And they've got an opportunity to go, well, this happened and this happened and this happened and this is what we did, and oh, we're so happy. They're not doing that. Why?
And they're essentially AWOL, at the same time,
Yeah.
when all of these different things are happening. Now, what? Okay, I'm going to put you a little on the spot here. I worked for RFK Jr. for before he ran for president for 8 years,
Right.
and I remember when Children's Health Defense started with a bootstrap budget of about $50,000 a year, and we were just nobody took a salary. I think we had a PO box in Peachtree, Georgia,
Hmm.
and there were like three of us, and then we had a board, and that was it. What's your assessment of what he's done so far, and how he's doing so far?
So far, again, with the giant caveat that nothing ever happens as quickly as I want it to, and
Right.
that's on me. That's not on him. But aside from that, I think he's absolutely knocking it out of the park. I love his I love his directness. I love his candor. I love the strategy. I love uh, just his whole attitude. It's really something to look up to, I think, for especially for a younger generation. They're
Yeah,
starving to death to have someone in power really shoot them straight. That's really the secret to the youth uh, actually heading for a 70-something-year-old man who's currently our president. They want people to just shoot them straight. There's so much BS in the world these days. When you find a source that is clear and can look you in the eye and say something that rings true in your heart, you like them. You want more of them. And I think he's doing an amazing job at that. I really do. I love the whole food thing. I wish he'd get more aggressive on a few things, but I
sure.
figure he's busy and it'll get around to it. The chemtrail thing for once, I know everybody thinks it's I've got 10 underneath just somewhere, but it's I just know too many people that spend a lot of time in the air. I know what it is and I know it's true. So
Yeah, it is true.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely true. What about the blowback? I mean, I've never seen so many individuals just come so unleashed. I've seen people like Bernie Sanders and Senator Bill Cassidy, even in the confirmation hearings. I thought that
Hmm.
Sanders was going to have an aneurysm right there. It's like get the,
Well,
get the crash cart.
see now we've entered into an area that I'm familiar with.
Right,
I've been in entertainment my whole life. This stuff is really entertaining to see the reaction, the collective and the individual reactions of all the significant voices on the other side that assume that you know Fauci and the like and everything else, the central bank, the whatever. Pick a subject.
right.
They're these infallible institutions. No, they're not. They're incredibly fallible. In fact, mostly corrupt. And to see their reactions to that is just entertaining to me. It is. It gets said a lot, but it's true. I really do smell popcorn when I start watching Rosie O'Donnell on television. I just okay, wait, there's got to be somewhere here. It's
Absolutely.
it's just fun, and I'm sorry if that's wrong. To feel what is that fabulous word, Schadenfreude, to find joy in the despair or grief of others, but I have it. I'm suffering from extreme Schadenfreude.
Oh my goodness, that's a great word. I mean,
It is a great word. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go back to Sesame Street and sound that one
Hmm.
out, but,
Yes.
it is, or maybe the bouncing ball could go over the syllables. So,
Yeah, maybe.
yeah, that would
And
be
ironically,
wonderful.
it's German, for all of us Nazis. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm gonna look it up. My son and I have been speaking German, and so it's been quite a learning process. Now he came out spelling
Hmm.
when he first became open. He already knew German, so we it sent
What?
all of us scrambling that
That's
somehow
bizarre.
you can't really keep God's creation down. There's so much creative
Mm-mm.
power in the Word of God,
Yeah.
and God spoke, and life came. God spoke in the creation of my son, and even though there were a lot of illnesses, there were a lot of weaknesses, there were a lot of issues, God still found a way.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, my son was educated by the Holy Spirit, and
That's amazing.
it was so awesome. But I'm sorry, that was a big rabbit trail.
It's okay. It's one
That
I'm
he
familiar with. I can go down there like
so
this.
good,
Sorry,
so
it's
good.
not.
Yeah. But but in this, one of the things I was thinking about your song, Take This Jab, and how censored it was. I wish that we could re-release that song, because right now there's a message that
Yeah.
with the HHS secretary saying these things and the
Mm.
president saying these things on Truth Social, it's like mainstream media can't ignore it anymore.
Well, here's the fun part, and I'm glad you said something about that because I'm doing exactly that with
No.
with that coming out yesterday. Well, here's the beauty of getting so
Yeah.
incredibly canceled and censored.
Right.
Nobody knows. That thing got 50 something thousand views in under 24 hours and then disappeared. Nothing. Not one view since.
Absolutely gone.
That's not even mathematically possible. So now I will re-release it. I don't care if it does anything on YouTube. They're who they are. But
Right,
I can
right.
put it now on X, I can put it on Truth, I can put it on TikTok, I can re-release that thing. And it's still for
I'm so
sale,
glad.
and it's not about making money, but man, it'd be fun to point to the top of some chart and go, look what I got. Look what I did to you guys. That'd be fun. I, I, I
I
know vengeance is
no,
his,
no,
but
I
he lets me participate as a bit player occasionally.
well, it's genius. I mean, the song itself, I mean, and the line dance in the video, gotta love it. But um so good, so good. And a sort of a dead ringer for Johnny Paycheck with the hat and the boots and just your demeanor, and it's so perfect. If you haven't seen that video, you have to take this jab and shove it. Is it on Rumble? I can't remember where
It was on YouTube. I don't know
or
if we
what.
even ever put it on Rumble. See, that's the stuff. I just put it out and it got hammered so quickly. And back then, if you recall, there was not a lot of freedom anywhere. Facebook did the
No,
same thing. They were like, yeah, no.
right, right. Well, it still
Which by
made,
the way,
the country
Rick,
charts. It was in the 60s, right? Wait,
mhm,
just
yeah,
because of that weekend.
yeah, yeah. So speaking of social media, really quick, if there's
Yes, sir.
anybody out there that follows my Gary Chapman singer-songwriter page or him a week, which is a page that we started to honor my mom
Those
and
are on
dad.
Facebook, right?
They
Are
were
you are you on X
both
now?
both those sites got stolen 2 weeks ago.
What?
They're still there, but my wife and I have absolutely no control of them. No access. We don't manage them. We don't administrate them.
What in the
We can't.
heck
We
happened?
can't. Darkness happened, dude. That's a dark, dark place. It is. So I went through the process of all their submitting a report and all the stuff. I did that for a few days and then
Mhm.
finally came to the sad conclusion there's literally not a breathing human that can help you at Meta. Literally not one. Now, fortunately, I do have some friends that have giant followings. And I
Mhm.
called one of them in particular and said, man, here's what happened. Do you know anybody? Is there any way you can fix this? He immediately said, actually, yeah, I've got a guy on the inside. I got it. And I sent him the screenshots of all the information he needed, and they're going to get it fixed. I'll get them back. But
Good.
that's like overnight, this 88,000 people that I had, quite frankly, kind of weeded them down to that. I don't like a bunch of people that aren't there, But
Right, right.
it
This
was
isn't, yeah,
88,000 people that were ready to march through fire with me, and
absolutely. This
they
is what
vanished. But they're
God
coming
puts
back.
on Gary's heart, not clickbait.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
no. But they're coming back. They're coming
And
back. So I'm not
what are
worried
the
about it.
platforms, and what is it still face I had followed you on Facebook, so
Yeah, yeah. They're on those will be back on Facebook
oh, good, good.
under our control. But
Yeah,
because of the way this has happened, we will aggressively pursue all the other available avenues because we'd gotten way too myopic with that
right,
particular spot, like a lot of people have. So
right, and
we're changing.
it's Gary Chapman, singer-songwriter, and a hymn a
Yeah,
week.
him a week. Yes.
Okay, good, good. Yeah, 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 we're gonna look for those when they are back, and, please pray for us. Please pray for Gary. I mean, there it is darkness.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's undeniable at this point, especially uh, to the degree that you're willing to to call it darkness. The return response is going to be equal to what you give out. I mean, it's and I'm just too old to frankly give a rip
Right,
about what anybody thinks. So I tell what I believe to be the absolute unadulterated truth about everything. And when I do that, uh, the father of lies gets really angry and he unleashes literally hell. And that's okay because the beautiful thing of the whole spiritual fight is that it's over. It's over. All you have to do is remind that chump, the devil, that he got his butt handed to him 2,000 years ago. We're just walking this out. The fight's over. The fight was over when Jesus walked out of that tomb with the keys to death, hell, and the grave, and he's not giving them back. So,
Amen.
it's all good. It makes it, honestly, it's pretty fun. It's
Yeah,
pretty fun.
absolutely. Absolutely. We're not only sitting on the sidelines, but we're also active participants. We're in the
Oh,
game that we
yes.
know
Yeah.
we
Oh,
win.
I'm on a deliverance team that coincidentally, we generally have appointments at on Tuesday nights. We have one tonight.
Okay.
And someone will walk into that room that is most times near suicidal, at least very, very heavy.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, Most of the time, it's interesting. I've done it now for 5 years, I think, something like that.
Wow.
It's almost always attributable to a wound, a trauma. Many, 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 many times, it's child abuse,
Right.
sexual or physical in some way. And when you take them back to that moment and deal with what came in through that window that was open through the trauma,
Hmm.
God wins. God wins every time, every single time. The score remains God always, Satan zero. It's not changing. That's the way it's going to be. So, you know,
So
it's it's
encouraging.
it's fun. It's
It is.
actually fun. And
It
I know
is.
that sounds weird if you just watched, some horror possession movie last night and you're going, he's crazy. He's out of his mind. Yeah, maybe. Maybe I am. But it's fun to win. There's nothing like getting a fight and you know you're going to win. Nothing. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you have
Tuesday.
a song for us?
Oh, I have lots of songs. But
Okay.
yeah, I'll pick
Do
one
you
out.
have a yeah, yeah,
But
I hear you handpick this one, so go
well,
for it.
these days that we're living in, speaking of all the what they think versus what we think, in the end, uh, love will win. And when that happens, we're going to realize something. We haven't actually been that far apart. We haven't. I know it seems like it, but when you let love be the blanket that covers everybody, which can only happen when you make the choice to let Jesus into your heart. But to the degree that the world does that, and I think that's going to happen on a grand scale shortly, uh, they're going to find out we really weren't that far apart. You might be camel, flannel, white linen and lace, denim, leather, designer suede. You could be cotton, satin, faded hand-me-downs. Crazy as it sounds, we're all made the same way. It might be hard to tell. We're all made to make up something bigger than ourselves. Whether you're torn and tattered or barely worn at all, we're all cut from the same cloth. We're all cut from the same cloth. When you feel patched up, barely hanging on by a thread, run through the ringer, a little more than you should have. When you're hung out to dry out there all alone, you're not the only one, 'cause we're all made the same way. It might be hard to tell. We're all made to make make up something bigger than ourselves. Whether you're torn and tattered or barely worn at all, we're all cut from the same cloth. If we're all made in His image, shouldn't we all be more like Him? We're all made the same way. Might be hard to tell. We're all made to make up something bigger than ourselves. Whether you're torn and tattered or barely worn at all, we're all cut from the same cloth. We're all cut from the same cloth. We're all cut from the same cloth. Same cloth.
Absolutely incredible. And what a perfect song for this time. You know, it is there's so much of a war going on, but the war is not with flesh and blood.
No, it is not.
Absolutely not with flesh and blood. And you know, we talk about the individuals behind the lies. We don't like the things that they say, but we are not against their persons. We're against really the principalities and the powers that are motivating the darkness. And the, you know, evil is in this world, is absolutely, but far be it from us to resort to hating people that God created.
You're playing the enemy's game when you do that. That's
Yeah.
crazy. That's crazy. You're switching sides. And one of the more rewarding things that will happen tonight, this person, I don't know if it's man, woman, I have no idea who it is. We get background, but I don't ever read it, to be honest, because I prefer to let the Holy Spirit tell me what to do and think.
Right.
Not come in with some preconceived notion. But that person will come in with an extremely adversarial spirit, if you will. And then after, if it takes, sometimes it's not dramatic, it's really sweet, in fact, and sometimes it's everything you can imagine.
Right.
But at the end of it, every time, the hug that person will give me is perfect. It's perfect. It's complete peace and love. And it's just amazing to see the contrast. I wish more people were aware of that process and what it means. Truth is, everybody needs deliverance. Everybody thinks that is, you gotta, if your head's not spinning around and you're, spitting out pea soup, that you're cool. No, we all have wounds. And where there are wounds that have not been dealt with, the enemy will carve out a little niche. He'll carve out a little space for one of his minions to occupy. And that'll be the thing that keeps you up in the middle of the night. That'll be the thing that tells you to be afraid and to be worried about X, whatever it is in your life. And when you get rid of it, the worry and the doubt and the fear go with it. Because there's a spirit of fear. There is a spirit of doubt. There is a spirit of shame. There is a spirit of all those things. All those things are entities. And they're around us all the time looking for a reason and a window.
Well, I can't thank you enough. I mean, I honestly, I could talk to you for the rest of the day. Your insight, your wisdom. How old are you now? 67, is that right?
I just turned 68.
Oh my goodness, where have I been?
Yep.
Okay, you, Gary Chapman, you walk in so much wisdom, and I'm so thankful that you just come on the show and you're real.
Well, I don't really have any options anymore. I come pre-canceled, so
Absolutely. Well, I can't wait for the re-release
yes,
of
indeed.
Take This Jab. And we're going to follow you on Facebook on Gary Chapman, singer-songwriter, and a hymn of the week.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you that song it just hit the spot.
Well, thank you, Brian. I'm telling you, I treasure your friendship. I mean that.
Likewise, thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for joining us for this episode of Doctors and Scientists. You want to get filled up? You want your friends to get filled up? Watch this episode, share it, tell it to people, tell people about Gary Chapman, and most of all, share the love of Jesus.
Tell everyone your name, please.
Jody O'Malley.
Jody O'Malley. Many of you may recognize Jody, but we're going to talk about that in a minute. Talk first of all about when you first woke up to something is very wrong.
Well, I first woke up to something is very wrong in February of 2020 when I heard that we were going to get on board with this 2 weeks to slow the spread, and it was going to be a global thing. And for me, all of my teachings in church as a young girl came rushing through, and I literally looked up to God and said, I'm supposed to pay attention to this part, right? And I was given this discernment to choose faith over fear at all costs.
And what were you doing at that point? What kind of a nurse were you, and what were you working on?
So I was a nurse in the float pool department. I was a critical care nurse, so I could pretty much go to any area in the hospital. ICU, OB, med surge, ER, and then my hospital recognized my critical thinking and assessment skills and asked me to be hospital supervisor of the federal hospital. It's called Phoenix Indian Medical Center. It's under the branch of HHS, Health and Human Services, and the Indian Health Services, IHS, runs it.
Okay, so talk us through what you saw.
Yeah, so, in the beginning, I just knew the fear, right? It was all fear, it was all panic, and it was a 24/7 shoving down your throat fear, which is propaganda, because propaganda is only one thing that you could do, right? It's like, you have got to be fearful. You have got to put a mask on. You have to isolate. You have to listen. And then the virtue signaling came. And what was happening in the hospital was we stopped treating people. We essentially told everyone to stay home, right? And not come into the hospital. We shut down surgeries. We stopped the kids from going to school, right? I mean, businesses were shut down, just everything all around was just fear. And I knew as a nurse that public health policy does not dictate having people, healthy people, first of all, isolate with the sick. And then also too, not educate ourselves. I mean, because we know for children, it's extremely important that they're in school. A lot of time, abuse situations are apparent there. They have people coming out and talking with the kids. Nurses or teachers can recognize if there's something going on in a child's life. I mean, just overall, this whole agenda was just demonic.
So you were working in that 2020.
Yeah.
Were you, or did you stay there when the vaccine came out?
Yes. So the vaccine rolled out in December of 2020. And I like to tell people, I look at this in phases of what we saw in terms of sickness at the hospital. First, it's important to realize that the Native Americans are the highest affected population in the world. They lost 7 years off of their lifespan and virtually 2. Okay, going back to numbers in the 1920s of how long they're going to live. And then at that time, wait, what was the question? I'm sorry, Polly.
We were talking about,
yeah.
We were talking about, before pre-jab, you saw a certain
Oh, yes.
kind of sickness and then after Chapman.
Right. So we did not have our first wave, I like to call it, of COVID admissions until July and August of 2020. Virtually the hospital was dead. We shut down surgeries, clinics, everything like that. And then the next wave I saw was late December, January. And that was when we injected this population. We were the first ones to be able to receive it. Many people lined up for it, to get it. And then I started noticing that there were people that were injured, right? I didn't really look at it so much in that light because as nurses, we're not trained. We get training in school about VAERS, but when you're working like in areas of med-surg, ICU, ER, we're not recognizing vaccine injuries. You know, I like to take people back to like critical thinking. If you're a nurse listening to this, you know, imagine this. Every single year we do learning modules. We're having to do the same ones over and over to prove that we're still competent in that area. How come we never had any on VAERS? How come the government didn't push out to the millions of health providers to say, hey, listen, we are going to roll out an experimental technology, mRNA, never before used on humans, and then we're going to inject it with never before injected biologic agents. So we need you guys to recognize if there's any safety signals we need to be aware of. They never did that. So that is when I knew they didn't care to know. Right? And then you also had the nurses and the doctors that took this injection. And so therefore, they're not wanting to recognize that there's anything wrong with it. So they don't even want to go down that path of thinking. And when my coworker was coerced to get the injection, okay? She did in July of 2021. She had worked in the COVID unit, essentially, ICU COVID unit, for this entire time. And then 3 of the girls went and got injected in the middle of the night before day shift came in because the pharmacist had to throw it away because it was no longer, it was going to be expired. The 3 nurses went to go get this injection. 2 weeks later, she shows up in the emergency room saying that she just doesn't feel well. All of her vital signs are normal. She's not requiring oxygen. And then a couple of days later, well, she's put on remdesivir. Then a couple of days later, now she's intubated and she passes away. This is 2 weeks post her first jab. Nobody was talking about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the problem that we have in healthcare, is that they don't want to recognize or realize what was happening, so nobody was collecting the data. That's how I knew the government didn't care. They just wanted a shot in every arm.
So when did you decide you were going to do something about it, be a whistleblower? When did that happen?
When that happened with my coworker, she came in and she asked me, she said, hey, what are those meds that you've been talking about? And I said, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine. She said, yes, I want that. And then I went into just nurse mode. I was hospital supervisor, so I was essentially running the hospital. And I spoke to her nurse and I said, she wants to try this. Do you know anything about this med? And she said, no. And I said, well, look it up. And then she did, and she calls me up and says, yeah, she's not contraindicated. We should try it. And then she went and talked to the doctor. The doctor had said that it's controversial. So I called the doctor and the nurse into my office and respectfully said to the doctor, doc, controversial or not, it's not a reason not to practice medicine. Would you be willing to look up some evidence? And I gave her FLCCC website, and she looked it up. The nurse calls me and says, she's going to order it. And I was like, praise God. A couple minutes later, she calls me back and says, pharmacist denied it. And I said, what? And she said, yeah, the pharmacy won't fill it. So I called the pharmacist into my office, and at that point, Polly, was my very first recording. I set my phone up on the counter and I pushed record, because at that time I didn't know what I was going to do with it. But I knew that I had this spirit that she was going to die. And, it just was one of the hardest things. And I thought to myself, I'm going to have to make sure that I'm hearing what she says. And that was my reason for initially recording. But then very shortly thereafter, we had a 15-year-old with bilateral blood clots in his lungs after the injection. And I took report to cover a nurse for break. And she said, oh, there's a 15-year-old with bilateral PEs. He's not requiring oxygen. He's good. Probably go home tomorrow. And I said, okay, well, is he overweight? And she said, no, he doesn't have any comorbidities. And I said, was he injected or vaccinated? I used at the time. And she said, I don't know, but I'll be back in 15 minutes. And I'm like, my God, nobody's asking the questions. We had another nurse, young nurse in her 20s, develop POTS and had to wear a cardiac monitor for a month. I mean, nobody's recognizing that this is the injury. So what had happened after seeing that, recognizing that we just completely violated the ethics of our profession and the patient's Bill of Rights by removing the advocate from the bedside, not providing early treatment, not honoring patients' wishes, right? All of these things, I thought, you know what? Oh, then I had a 30-something-year-old come into the ER, and I got that on film with the doctor telling him that you have myocarditis, pericarditis, and congestive heart failure, probably due to the vaccine. And I was just like, it just seemed like God had answered. God had said, here you go. All I need you to do is push record. And I pushed record and I uploaded it to James O'Keefe's organization.
And so you went out and you went viral.
Yep.
And what was your life like after that?
What was my life like? Well, I've gained 50 pounds. That I tell people, like, food has been my comfort.
Have you been attacked?
No.
That's good.
No. I received 99.9% love. And people just wanted the truth. They were hungry for it. They were thirsty for somebody to tell them. After that, I did get 18 complaints against my nursing license, and the Arizona State Board of Nursing ordered me to undergo a formal ethics evaluation, which I was deemed clear of all wrongdoing. So my license is intact. I'm winning First Amendment lawsuits against me. The pharmacists try to come after me and, and prevent me from ever saying the pharmacist ever again. And a judge was actually close to awarding it to her because it was video. It's so crazy, but now we're in a lawsuit, almost in the hearing phase with a federal judge for HHS for my whistleblower retaliation, where I'm claiming that they a danger to public health and safety, waste, fraud, and abuse. Oh my gosh, there's 5 things a whistleblower can blow the whistle on, and I got all of them. So we're there finally.
And are you working now? Are you able to keep
Well,
yourself going?
yeah, so my work kept me around for 15 months until the federal judge twisted their hand and said, I'm not deposing the same people twice. So figure out what you're going to do with her. And they fired me 15 months later. And then a few months ago, a physician that I worked with in the ER reached out to me and said, what are you doing now? And I said, I have the nurses out loud. I've been speaking, just doing all the things. And he said, the ER needs you. Do you want to come back? And I said, and not to my original hospital. And I said, oh my gosh, I would love to, but I just can't follow protocol like that. It's just against my ethics and my integrity. And he said, they don't require masks, they don't require injections, and it's a great hospital. So now I'm back to ER nursing too. Yes.
So you're all back.
And I'm back. And here's the other thing. I'm a fly on the wall, essentially. I mean, my managers that hired me know that I'm a federal whistleblower, but I respectfully ask them if we can just keep it under wraps, because I just want to be Nurse Jody. I just want to be me and let people judge me on the type of nurse I am before they're going to find out. There's a few nurses that have recognized me and seem to be keeping it quiet so I can continue on. And so the other day I was in the break room and a couple of nurses, no, I was out at the nurses station at like 3 a.m, and I just started talking and talk about injuries. It was a new nurse. And I said, I wonder how the ethics portion of nursing school went. And she's like, what do you mean? And I said, how did they get over the whole idea of coercing you into an experiment? And she's like, what are you talking about? And I said, the COVID jab, I said, or COVID injection. I said, it's not, it's still experimental. It's not approved. How did they get to that principle of nursing ethics? And she's like, I don't know. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of a problem. And I said, because there are people that are injured. And then another nurse that was standing there said to me, do you know my story? And I said, no. And she's like, I know I was injured. And I said, really? And she goes, off of that damn jab. I was one of the first people to sign up to take it because I wanted to do my part, and I go and I get injected, and 30 minutes later I'm at the Jeep dealership, and my parotid started swelling, and then my throat started swelling, and I was having an anaphylactic reaction. And I go back to the ER because it was close, and I tell them my throat's closing. They have to intubate me. The next day, and she goes in, and I'm broken out in hives throughout my body. And she said the next day, I'm talking to them after they extubate me, and then talking about the vaccine, me just getting injected right prior. And they said, well, you don't know if it's that. And that's the issue, Polly, is because no, we don't know it's that, but it is our legal, ethical, and moral obligation to report safety signals, because where there's smoke, there's fire. That's how Pfizer had to say that myocarditis can be a side effect, right? That's why they went out. And that's the thing that was lacking, is that people thought if they filed a VAERS report, if they even knew about VAERS, that they had to determine causation. But that's not our job to determine it, So that's another huge issue.
Okay, so what do you say to potential nurses watching right now that they want to tell the truth, they've seen some bad things, but they don't want to lose their job, and this is what we're hearing the whole time. I would come and talk to you, but I can't, sorry.
Yes. The same thing that I told them. I said, listen, when I was speaking out in 2020 and 21 in the hospital, I knew that it was my ethics that was going to get me through it, and evidence-based practice. Remember, nurses, we're supposed to follow evidence-based practice, which is using the best available science that you have, right? And there's a lot of science out about masks, about injuries. I mean, go to children'shealthdefense.org. You'll get a plethora of it. Highwire, right? I mean, there's so many places that you can get this information. And if you're speaking, with science backing you up and studies, it doesn't have to be CDC approved, right? It could just be from other authors and resources and stuff. NIH has, studies on there about, injuries and whatever, anything that you want to talk about, ivermectin, remdesivir, mask, it's all there. So talk. That's our job to do. We're supposed to educate, and we're supposed to have discourse. That's how science is driven. And if you are finding that you absolutely do not want to be a part of this system, because I know there's so many of you out there that are protesting against safe staffing, or against travelers making more money than you, those types of issues. just recognize what's been done. This was all a planned catastrophe, essentially. We went from a nursing shortage to a nursing crisis. What did they think was going to happen when they refused to honor our Constitution, our autonomy, our ethics, and our exemptions? But there's other programs out there. I'm working very closely with Remnant Healthcare, which can provide the patients for you to help treat. And Functional Nurse Academy, Melissa Schreibfetter's organization, that she just got accredited to be a functional medicine nurse specialist with her organization, and that's outside of CDC. You know what I'm saying? So there are options. Follow us on Nurses Out Loud. We're speaking 5 days a week, giving you education and resources.
So nursesoutloud.com, what is it, website?
Yeah, so AmericaOutloud.news is the platform. It's the one that McCullough is on. So if you follow him, that's where our show is, and it's called Nurses Out Loud. But we're also on iHeartRadio under the America Out Loud banner, and on all the podcast platforms, and just type in Nurses Out Loud, 3 separate words, and you'll find us there. And then you can go to the episode website, and then you can find information for me and the other nurses on there.
All right, good. Now, some more advice, please. What's your advice to not the nurses, not the medical profession, the people? Because we're still getting reports of hospital protocol deaths with remdesivir. Apparently hasn't gone away. A lot of these pictures of people who claim their loved ones were killed with remdesivir and vents and God knows what else. If people don't want to go to the hospital anymore.
That's right. That's right.
All right. So what is your advice? What do you have to say to us?
Well, my advice, number one, is do what you can to promote better health for you. And that is mind, body, and spirit. Sunshine, water, proper nutrition, nutrients, food. Eliminate the sugar out of your diet. It's highly inflammatory. Take ownership of your own health, number one. Number two, I think it's very important to get an advocate. And not just your mom or your husband or somebody that thinks like you, right? And Remnant Healthcare offers that. That's the amazing thing. All of the people in Remnant Healthcare have to be trained in functional medicine as well. So it's amazing. And then spiritually, number one is spiritual, right? Is because when you recognize, no matter what your view is, okay, no matter what it is, I'm sure everybody feels an element of good versus evil happening in the world, and for me, it's biblical. It's a biblical time to be alive, and it's an exciting time to be alive, and especially to be called according to his purpose, and that's how I feel that I submitted to the will of God. I asked for forgiveness. I said, Father, take this cup from me. Your will be done and not my own. And he has guided me, and I live a life of joy and peace, and I'm getting that demon of overeating right off of my back. I just did spring cleaning in my house, cleared out all the cobwebs, which that's what Passover is about. It's that time of year, so look at the spring. No matter where you're at in this country, it's a beautiful time of the year of rebirth and just looking at life in a different way. Don't focus on the negative, focus on the positive, and take care of that. I do offer a private membership community called the Truth Movement, where I bring in experts like McCullough, artists, nurses that are doing things, and I'm gearing up to do a 3-month workshop with my health coach from Chemical Free Body, and then we also talk and have book clubs on my book, Rare Courage, and I read a chapter and then we all discuss, and it's just a wonderful way to build up your confidence so you too have the courage to walk in your calling in a community.
Amazing. Thank you for taking the time to be. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think that was it. I'm kind of getting good at this.
You're really good at it. Okay, so say bye to everybody.
Bye, guys. God bless.